After the 1975 conference, it was decided that we should have Freddie out to New Zealand, and he came and did another course for us. As a result of the exams in the Canaries, and as a result of the pressure that the Chiropractic Commission was putting on the medical profession, Dr. Ray Dowden and Mr. Jerry Wall, who was the Speaker of the House, Dr. Ray Dowden was the Chairman of the Physiotherapy Board, were on their way to London to a conference, and they heard that the Canary Island Conference in '73 was on. So they called into the Canaries. They loved it. They were there for 4 or 5 days, and they witnessed the examinations that were taking place. And as a result of their recommendations, when they came back to New Zealand later in 1973, they said that New Zealand had passed an international assessment of manipulative standards. Therefore, there was no need for chiropractors. And so therefore that pulled the feet or the rug out from underneath the chiropractors, saying that there were no medically acceptable manipulators in New Zealand. So we're very fortunate that as a result of the Canaries at that time, we had a report from medical authorities that we had an acceptable standard here in New Zealand. And so the chiropractors never were able to get their way and have full financial backing, primary health care funding. And as I said, Don McKenzie was instrumental in doing that. As a result of that, the examinations that we had envisaged as far as our little group were concerned, we'd set up an examining group and we hoped to have a New Zealand standard. And as a result of that Canary Island experience, our New Zealand manipulative therapy exams that we held were approved by the Physiotherapy Board as being an additional qualification on your registration. So that was something that we'd achieved. In 1974, as a result of the meetings that we'd had in the Canaries, it was decided that at the WCPT meeting in Montreal that IFOMPT, the International Federation, would be formed on the standards that have been found to be sufficient at the Canaries. And so in Montreal in 1974, IFOMPT was formed. There was a constitution set up, and New Zealand, with Ian Searle as an executive member, was one of a 3-man executive force for this newly formed IFOMPT group. And the next thing, of course, was to get that approved IFOMPT group accepted by WCPT as being acceptable to WCPT world standards. So we had to work on that. So we set up a standards committee, a committee that would assess and set up a syllabus of training and examination procedures that would be acceptable to WCPT. And that eventually became to pass in 1978 at Tel Aviv in Israel in the WCPT, where we held a course. Freddie Carlton held a course, I was an instructor. And WCPT, IFOMPT, approved as the first subgroup of WCPT. And I was fortunate, I was elected the Executive Secretary of IFOMPT at that stage. Don't know whether I was fortunate or not, but I had a wonderful team back here in New Zealand. And so I became the Executive Secretary of IFOMPT, and to my knowledge, we've had a member of the Executive Committee of IFOMPT from that date. Barbara Headington was president, and there's always been someone from New Zealand on the executive of IFOMPT. I bowed out a few years later, and I was lucky that when we had a meeting in Littlehammer, I was elected the first honorary life member of IFIL, which was a thrill, which was nice.